Hi, 6th graders. For this lesson, we are going to be looking at angle relationships. By the end of this lesson, you want to be able to classify and apply angle relationships. So let's start out by talking about a couple of vocab words. The first vocab word that we're going to learn and talk about today are vertical angles. Now, vertical angles are created when any two lines intersect, and the angles that are opposite each other are congruent. Now what does that mean? Well, congruent angles are just angles with the same measure. So, for example, if I labeled this angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4, these would be create vertical angles because we have two intersecting lines. So the angles that are opposite each other, so 1 and 3, 2 and 4 would be vertical angles, which means the measure of angle 1 is congruent or equal to the measure of angle 3, and the measure of angle 2 is congruent to the measure of angle 4. And that little arrow right there just means congruent. Okay? So using that information, I want you to find the missing angle measure in each situation. Alright, so if we look at this first situation, we have a 17-degree angle here. X is opposite, so the measure of angle X is equal to 17 degrees. Why don't you pause the video and see if you can get the next one on your own. Once again, since X is opposite of 140, the measure of angle X is equal to 140 degrees because they're opposite angles are opposite vertical angles, so they are congruent. Another couple of common vocab words you're going to hear are supplementary and complementary. For supplementary, if you remember the S, they're going to be two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. So the reason I said to remember the S is you think 180 degrees, straight angle. Straight also begins with an S. Okay? And then complementary angles are two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. Now this is nice because it'll help us find missing angle measures in different situations. So we want to classify each set of angles as supplementary, complementary, or neither. Alright, so if we look at our first situation, we have 45 and 135. Now they might look like they form a straight angle, but let's just check. Alright, so we're going to take 45. Here's I'm going to start with the 135. So we're going to start with 135 and we're going to add 45 to see if they add up to 180. And they do. So these two would be supplementary. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video and try the next two on your own. Alright, going back to this first one, so remember this one was supplementary because they added up to 180, and 180 is a straight angle. 20 plus 70 is 90. So that makes these two complementary angles. And if we do 110 plus 35, that only gives us 145. So these two are neither supplementary nor complementary. Now what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video. Using what we know about our different vocab words, I want you to find the missing angle measure in all three of these figures. And in some situations there might be more than one missing angle. So anytime there's a variable, we're going to find an angle measure for it using our definitions. Alright, in this first situation, we have an angle of 105 degrees and we have x degrees. If you look, together they form a straight line, so we know they're supplementary angles and they're going to add up to 180. So to figure out our missing angle, I can take 180 minus 105 and I get 75 as an answer. So the measure of angle X is 75 degrees. Now if you remember from the other lesson, this little box means that it forms a right angle, so which is 90 degrees. So if we look at here, we have 65 and we have x, so together those have to add up to 90. So if I do 90 minus 65, or I can count up, 65 to 70 is 5, 70 to 80, 80 to 90, so they have a difference of 25 degrees. So here the measure of angle x is 25 degrees. Now this last one is a little bit trickier because you have to use a couple of different definitions. I would start with our vertical angle definition. Since we have two intersecting lines, we form vertical angles. Since 40 and B are opposite of each other, we know the measure of angle B is 40 degrees. Now, what about A and C? Well, if you use our other definition, because if you think about it, intersecting lines, these are still straight angles, that means that A and 40, C and 40, or B and C, A and B form supplementary angles because they add up to 180. So if this angle is 40, something plus 40 has to equal 180. That gives us an angle measure of 140 degrees. And then you can use the same logic between 40 and C, or that A and C are vertical angles. So that tells us angle C is also 140 degrees. Make sure you ask any questions to clarify if you have them, and we will go from there.